Hello world, my name is Victor Engelmann, and in this video I'm going to show you how to automate your web browser using a Python library called Selenium. Well, automating your web browser, I think you can imagine a lot of things you can do with that. For example, I think a good thing you could do with it is to maybe automate your brokerage. So if you are trading with stocks, then you could have some program that monitors your stocks and makes decisions for you. You wouldn't need to use some strange API that you need access to. You can then just do it on top of the front end of the website that you're using. Or if you are running your own website, you could monitor your own website and have something like an early warning system when your website is being defaced. Okay, so let's start doing that. The first thing that you need is the version of your Chrome browser. So go to About Google Chrome, and it says here version 91. Okay, .0.4472.164, but okay. The major version here in front, that's really what you need. Then you go to sites.google.com/chromium.org/driver. Then you're on this website here, and here you get something called a Chrome driver. Okay. Now you look for the version of your Chrome. Yeah, this version here seems pretty close. I think this should work with it. Okay, now you download the driver for your operating system. I'm running Linux in a 64-bit mode, so that's what I'm going to download here. Okay, so I've downloaded this Chrome driver. I'll unpack it. And now you have this Chrome driver, which is a binary file. So it says here it's an ELF executable. So you take that and you move that to some directory in your path variable. So if you look at your path variable, user bin would be something that people would normally use for this, I think. So let's see. Okay, so now I've moved this to user bin. So I can now start Chrome driver, but the communication, I think it uses some form of JSON-based communication here, and that's not really something you should do manually. So. But it tells you here which port it's using, 9515. I think this is also in the default settings of Selenium, so you don't need to know this, but yeah, okay. So I've closed this Chrome driver now, now let's start writing our Python code. I'll call it automate.py. because we are writing this in Python. Okay, right now this doesn't do anything. That's not surprising because the file is empty, but now we start doing something. So what we need is we need to import the WebDriver from Selenium. So okay, this is a class that can communicate with this WebDriver that we've seen here. So this class speaks this, I think, JSON-based communication. Okay, so when we've imported this, then we can instantiate this class WebDriver.Chrome, because we are automating Chrome. There are WebDrivers for other browsers. I've seen one for Firefox, and I think also Safari, and I think even Internet Explorer, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, since I'm using Chrome, I will also use the Chrome WebDriver. So okay. And when you have this driver, you can then communicate with this driver, telling it, for example, to navigate to some URL, like google.com. Okay, and then let's say we will sleep for a few seconds, 4 seconds, and then driver.quit closes our automated Chrome browser. Okay, now what we need for this to work, I mean, we've imported something from Selenium, but Selenium isn't part of the default installation of Python, so we need to install this package. Okay, now it's installed that. So yeah, now I think this should run. Let's try this. It says invalid argument. Okay, maybe I need to say okay. So yeah, okay. You see, you need to also pass the protocol. It's now loaded google.com. Time is not defined. Okay, now you've seen the browser was opened, it navigated to google.com and waited there for 4 seconds and then closed again. Okay, so now let's do something with this, because, well, just navigating to something is not so interesting. I definitely want to recommend this website here, selenium-python.readthedocs.io, because this is a really useful resource, especially here this API section. It really contains everything about Selenium, and when you have any trouble with Selenium, you'll probably find an answer there. Okay, so absolutely recommend this website for looking into things. How can I do this? How can I do that? Okay, now right now we only yeah, have this browser we can navigate and close it again. But of course you would probably want to do some more stuff with that. So what else can you do? Well, there's a lot of things you can do. For example, you have the method screenshot as file, and yeah, here you can just put a file name. Let's see if this works. Maybe the method has been renamed. The method has apparently been renamed to get screenshot as file. So let's apply that. And yeah, it made a screenshot. This would also be useful, I think, for cases like an early warning system for defacing. You know, you could then compare that screenshot to some reference image that you expect. And if it doesn't match, then you could send an email to yourself or something like that. Okay, what else can you do? You can ask the object for the current URL. I mean, if you've moved somewhere manually, then this is probably going to be the same thing, but yeah, I mean, there are automated redirections, so using this you could check if you've been redirected in some way, for example. Okay. Something else that you can do is you can inject a JavaScript into your into the currently loaded website, like driver.execute script, and have some JavaScript in here. So yeah, I mean, if you do web development, then this is stuff that you would normally do inside your website, like something like window dot scroll to 0, document dot body dot scroll height would scroll down to the end of the page. Okay, this is too quick. Let me set this to 10 seconds. Yeah, maybe I should wait a little before I send this scroll to. Okay, now it's executed the script, and now you've seen the page had scrolled down. Okay, so this is quite powerful. I mean, really running JavaScripts inside a website is already pretty good, but yeah, there are other ways how you can interact with a website. And yeah, I mean, if you have ever looked into a website, you have this HTML code here with all these tags and subtags and stuff, and yeah, this is really a better thing that you can utilize to communicate with the website more precisely. So for this, I recommend using a Chrome plugin or extension called Xpath Helper. Okay, so if you don't know what XPaths are, you should really look into that topic, because when you look at a website, at a website's source code, you know, with this HTML code, with these tags and subtags, then XPaths give you a way to address any of these objects in here. Like here I would have this link to automata theory, this here. And yeah, with Xpath Helper, okay, you need to close Chrome and reopen it, but once you have Xpath Helper, you can press Ctrl-Shift-X, and this opens this console here. And now you hold Shift while you hover over something, like here automata theory, and then it gives you this this XPath expression here. And yeah, as I said, you should really look into XPaths, because these expressions are really powerful for identifying any set of or any subset of your HTML page. You can precisely identify one thing, or you could have multiple things, like here I have all the links here and down here. And yeah, with these XPaths now you can now do interesting things in your Python code. This is a relatively complicated XPath, by the way. You can normally make things much simpler by just having something like // which searches anywhere under these tags. So yeah, there are many ways to make your XPaths simpler. So really learn how to use XPaths. They are really useful. So okay, now I'll copy this XPath, and in my script I can now use driver.find elements by XPath. Okay, and I paste this XPath that I just generated here. And yeah, now this link here will be an object that represents this link inside my page. Okay, and find elements, notice this S here, this returns a list of objects. And by the way, once you have a handle for some object, I mean, you could have yeah, a handle for something, for some parent object here. So you could first get a handle for this menu, and then inside that menu you could then search deeper into that menu by going to now going to menu.findelements by Xpath. And then you would have a relative Xpath. You don't start with slash. That's like in the Unix file system. If you start with a slash, then it's not relative, then it's looking, then it starts at the start of the page. But yeah, like this, you will now start at the menu and go from there for this item down there. Okay, but again, now we have an object for this link. And yeah, now we can interact with this this anchor here. And yeah, for example, we could now ask link.get attribute. Which attributes does it have? Well, a link has a hyperreference, so we could now ask for the attribute href, and let's see, let's print that. Okay, yeah, I removed this menu object, right? So I need to talk to the driver again. Okay, exception because it doesn't have get attribute. Yeah, as I said, this elements returns a list. You could ask for find element without the s. Then you will, then you will get an exception if there are multiple results or 0 results. So I personally prefer using the lists, and then we don't get a link, we get links. Okay, let's try like this. Okay, so this looks pretty good. If we look into the source code, yeah, that's the hyperreference of this link. Yeah, so this has worked. Yeah, you can of course now clearly see how you could use this to generate, to write something like a web crawler that indexes websites and collects all the links from the websites. Another thing that I think is pretty useful, you can this is not exactly an attribute. I mean, attributes are normally the stuff inside this tag. So yeah, this thing only has the attribute href, but you can also ask for inner text. And yeah, inner text gives you the text inside that object. This can also be very useful sometimes. You see here, automata theory, that's this inner text here. That's also useful. Okay, now let's say you want to do something like you want to open some website like google.com, which has some text box, and you want to send text into that text box. that's not as easy as it sounds, but yeah, there are ways to do that, and you basically need to simulate some user interaction. So and to do that, you need to import Selenium WebDriver common keys. Let's say we navigated to google.com, Xpath Helper for this object here. I think / input should be sufficient. Okay. So now we I'll say find element by XPaths. So we only have one of these objects and don't need to iterate, because I don't think this will change very soon on google.com. Okay, so we have this the search box, and with clear you can remove anything that might have been put there for whatever reason, like some default text or something. There is this method clear, which on text boxes removes any text that is currently in there. And now you can call send_keys. And put some text here. Okay. And with key enter, you press, you send a return key. So let's see if that works. Yes, now it works. So you import keys from Selenium WebDriver common keys, and this defines all these special keys here for down arrow, left arrow, up arrow, backspace, escape, enter, insert, and so on. Now, instead of searching by sending an enter key, you might want to press a button somewhere on the page instead. And there's and as normal you could find that as an XPath. I think this XPath should be sufficient. Let's test it. Yes, it's still highlighted, so this Xpath also works. So now we have a reference to that search button, and we could now say search button dot click, and yeah, that might work, but I've seen this also fail. And I don't remember what was the cause of that. If the page suppressed it, or if that came from Chrome. But I've seen this fail because somewhere on the path of sending this click, some object said, "Hey, you cannot click on an object if the mouse isn't over that." So and to prevent a problem like that, you can then you can basically move the mouse to that button. Okay, so yeah, you can do that with a so-called action chain by using from this WebDriver namespace WebDriver dot action chains for our driver. And now, yeah, you now create a chain of actions that you want to do. So you can move to this element, search button, and then click that search button. And yeah, at the end of this action chain, you need to call perform to actually do this action chain now. Okay. And the good thing about this approach is that if the user now moves the mouse away from the button again, if you have, I mean, you could only move the mouse there and maybe do the click sometime later, but if the user sitting in front of the computer now starts moving the mouse around, this might break your workflow. So, so I think it's really the best idea to do this as an action chain, that you move to the element and click it all in one go. You know, so user interaction doesn't break this flow. Okay. Okay, let's see if that works. Yeah, okay, this is of course if you've already moved to the search page by pressing enter, then of course the button is gone and then it doesn't find anything. So this is always a bit annoying. If something crashes, then it doesn't close the driver. So you would normally want to protect this with a try except. Okay, there was apparently some problem with this, with the Xpath, where this shorter Xpath didn't work, and I don't really see why. But okay, so with the full Xpath it worked, so whatever. While cutting this video, I noticed that yeah, apparently this actually hasn't worked, because here the search term that it took is actually the search term um, in this list at the position over the button. So it seems like the mouse click has gone to that list instead of the button, which is strange because I've actually told it deliberately to send the click to the button, but apparently that was ignored. So yeah, use this with caution. Another thing I want to talk about is changing something on a page. So let me just comment this out again. Let's go to algorithm.de again. Okay, so we take the link again, and yeah, we talked about how we could get attributes from the link by link.get attribute and then hyperref, for example. And yeah, you would assume that now you can set attribute so you could just set the attribute like that. Unfortunately, that is not something that Selenium does. Maybe it will do it in the future. I mean, I really don't see why it doesn't do that, but yeah, the only way that I found to really change something on the page is by running JavaScript on the page. So you would again have driver.execute script, and yeah, here you could now say set attribute href2 and yeah, the question is now, of course, where does that JavaScript set the attribute? I mean, you could do it maybe like document get element by ID, as you would normally do it in JavaScript, but yeah, then you need to have the ID, and I mean, there is this object link.id, but yeah, if the object in the page doesn't have an ID, that doesn't seem to work. So I think the better way to do it is using arguments 0.setAttribute. So yeah, which argument? Well, execute script can have more arguments than this text, so you can now put link here, and yeah, that would then change the hyperref. So let's run this, and now down in the corner you've seen that the hyperref was now google.com at this point. If you want to change the inner text, that's even easier. You don't even need set attribute. You can just use argument 0.innerText equals foobar. Put a semicolon for safety measures. And have you seen that? It just switched to foobar. Okay, so this is how you can change things on your page. Okay, so this would actually be enough for this video. We've talked about a lot of stuff, and I think this would be sufficient for a video. But I want to put a cherry on top, or maybe I should say an onion, because yeah, Selenium can also run on top of the Tor network, so that your script can run through the darknet or just hide your IP. So to run your script through the Tor network, we first need to install a few packages. Namely Tor, Tor socks, and Privoxy. Okay. The way this works is we will connect our Chrome to Privoxy, and Privoxy will be connected to the Tor socks, and yeah, that then routes your traffic through the Tor network. So we need to configure that by editing etc privoxy config, and in here you can search for Tor, which will jump you directly to this paragraph which talks about /socks5t, which is an option specifically for connecting Privoxy with Tor. Okay, and yeah, I've already set this to forward socks connections to 127.0.0.1, so to yourself, on port 9050, which is the port for Tor. So so I have already set this, and now I can start the services. Okay, now Tor is running, Privoxy is running. Now let's attach our Selenium controlled browser to it. Yeah, now I will throw out all this stuff here. Okay, I think it's a good idea to have some Boolean variable that controls whether you use Tor or not. So I will set this to true now. And if I use Tor, then I need to attach to this driver a proxy. And yeah, that's a class which comes from Selenium WebDriver Common Proxy. Okay. Now we need to configure this proxy and then attach it to the to our driver. So Yeah, I don't know if when I last did this, the documentation says you need to configure your proxy object to use SOX version 5, which, I mean, that does correspond with SOX 5 here from this configuration, right? But last time I did this, Selenium didn't have, or the classes just didn't have the attributes from the documentation. I'll just try using it. SOX version 5. Again, last time I tried this, this just didn't work because procs just didn't have this SOX version attribute. So, but just not setting it was sufficient. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll try using it this time again. Okay, now as a proxy, since we are running Prevoxy on our own machine, we again use 127.0.0.1 as a proxy server on port 8118. So this should be somewhere in here also. I think this is at least the listen address. There it is. So this is the port that Prevoxy is running on. Also for SSL proxy and for SOX. If the browser wants to do something through a SOX connection, that would be 9050 again, which was that here, which is the port that Tor is running on. You know, Tor is a SOX proxy, and that's why you need Prevoxy to direct HTTP and SSL connections through Tor, because the web browser just wouldn't directly send that through Tor. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, now the proxy is configured. Now we need to attach it to the driver. And actually, the driver that we've created up here, we cannot attach it after the driver has already been instantiated. It needs to be passed to the constructor. So we will just need to make a new driver. And now we need to pass the proxy into that, but okay, the constructor doesn't take a proxy object, it takes a capabilities object. Okay, now we have a capabilities object, and now we add the proxy to that capabilities. And now we can set, now we can pass that capabilities to the constructor as desired capabilities equals. Okay, and yeah, if you do that, if you turn on Tor like this, I would generally advise you to navigate to some page that that shows you that you are actually running on Tor for your own safety. So for example, in Germany, it's quite common to use wie ist meine IP .de, which is a German website that shows you your own IP. So I would really do this inside this if use Tor. So if you want to use Tor, then navigate to this page before doing anything, just to verify that you are actually running on Tor. Yeah, proxy type here. Yeah, okay. It's again still the problem. Cannot set a SOX proxy without a version, and yeah, this SOX version just still doesn't exist here. So whatever, I'll just ignore it. I'll just comment this out. So okay. So here's the browser, and yeah, this is not my IP. I can tell you that this wasn't my IP. So yeah, I'm really running on the Tor network right now. So why do I get 2 Chromes? Yeah, I think this is this one here. So maybe just do it like this. Okay, now I only get 1. And again, yeah, you see this this IP is changing because I'm running on the Tor network, and yeah. So yeah, you see now this is running on the Tor network. You might use that to circumvent some protective measures that prevent you from using something in an automated way. But of course, if you circumvent some protection measures, that might violate a website's terms and conditions, so it might be illegal. So, but that's on you. There are more than enough legal reasons to use the Tor network. And yeah, this is all I wanted to show you today. If you like this video, like it, share it, subscribe, and see you next time.